So, when winter starts creeping in like this, I always end up thinking about an old story I heard as a kid. It's about the mountains and a woman made of snow. They called her Yuki-onna, the Snow Woman. A long time ago, there were two woodcutters from a village tucked right under the shadow of the northern peak. One was an older man named Haru, and the other was a young man, barely more than a boy, named Daichi. One day, the snow came in faster than they expected. You know how storms can be in the mountains. One moment you're walking under a gray sky, the next you can't even see your own hands. The wind howled, the trees vanished into white, and the path home simply disappeared. They stumbled around until they found an old, half-rotten hut by the river. No firewood, no blankets, just four walls and a roof that creaked when the wind hit it. Still, it was better than freezing outside. Exhausted, they lay down and tried to sleep. Sometime after midnight, Daichi woke up. He didn't know why. Maybe it was the cold. Maybe it was that strange feeling you get when someone's watching you. The hut was dim, lit only by a faint glow leaking in through the cracks in the walls. Moonlight caught in the snow. And in that pale light, Daichi saw her. A woman stood beside Haru. Her skin was white, not just pale like someone who never goes outside, but white like frost on glass. Her hair fell long and dark over her shoulders, and her eyes were colder than the storm outside. She leaned over Haru, her breath spilling out in a thin, misty cloud. With that single, soft breath, Haru's face changed. His skin turned dull and gray, like all the color had been pulled out of him. His chest stopped rising. His body went perfectly still. Daichi couldn't move. He couldn't even scream. It was like the cold had frozen his voice inside his throat. Then the woman turned. She looked at him. Really looked at him, as if she were measuring something in his face. When she spoke, her voice was quiet and clear, like ice cracking on a river. "You are young," she said. "I will spare you tonight. But listen carefully. If you ever tell anyone what you saw here, I will come back for you." Daichi wanted to nod, to swear, to promise her anything, but he was too terrified to move. The woman straightened, and in the next blink, she was gone, swept away into the swirling snow blowing through the cracks. By morning, the storm had calmed. The villagers found the hut. Haru was dead, frozen stiff, a thin crust of frost across his face. They said it was the cold, nothing more. Daichi said nothing. He remembered the warning. Life went on. A year passed. One night, during another thick snowfall, there was a knock at Daichi's door. When he opened it, a young woman stood there, shivering slightly, snow caught in her hair. She said her name was Miyu. She was beautiful, almost unsettlingly so, with skin as pale as fresh snow and eyes that seemed to hold a quiet, distant sadness. She said she had lost her way in the storm, and Daichi, being kind-hearted, invited her in to warm herself by the fire. Days turned into weeks. Miyu stayed in the village, helping neighbors, laughing easily, learning the ways of the place. People liked her. Daichi fell in love with her without even realizing when it happened, and before long they were married. For years they lived peacefully. They had 2 children, a boy and a girl, and their house was always filled with the sound of little feet and winter laughter. Miyu was gentle, a bit strange sometimes. She never liked to sit too close to the fire, and on the coldest nights, she would stand by the window, staring out at the snow in complete silence. But she was a devoted wife and mother. Daichi never told her about that night in the hut. He never spoke of Haru or the pale woman in the storm. The wind outside was wild, rattling the shutters. The children had finally fallen asleep. bundled up under thick quilts. Daichi and Miyu sat together by a small fire, the room dim and warm. The kind of night that makes you nostalgic without knowing why. Maybe he was tired. Maybe he was feeling safe and foolish. Maybe the years had softened the edges of his fear, and he'd convinced himself it had all been a dream. Whatever the reason, the memory slipped out. He started talking about the blizzard, the hut, Haru's frozen face, about the woman with snow-white skin who breathed death into the old man and spared him only on the condition that he stayed silent. He told Miyu everything. When he finished, he laughed nervously and said something like, "Strange, isn't it? I never told anyone that before." Then he looked at her. Miyu wasn't smiling. Her expression had changed, subtly at first, then more and more. The warmth drained from her face. Her eyes grew hard and glacial. The same distant, inhuman cold he had seen all those years ago. "Daichi," she said quietly, "do you not remember the promise you made that night?" His heart stopped. He stared at her. In that moment, he understood. "Miyu?" She stood, and for the first time since he had known her, he felt afraid of her. Truly afraid. "I warned you never to speak of me," she said. "You broke your promise." She stepped closer, and the fire between them seemed suddenly small and useless. A chill swept through the room, sharp enough to bite. "I should kill you here and now," she whispered. "Just as I did to Haru." Daichi could barely breathe. His thoughts flew to the children sleeping in the next room. Miyu, Yuki Onna, whatever she truly was, followed his gaze. Her expression softened, just a fraction. "For the sake of our children," she said, "I will let you live. But you will never see me again." And before he could speak, before he could reach for her, she turned. Her shape blurred, dissolved into a swirl of white mist, and then she was gone, drawn out through the thin cracks of the door, out into the storm. The house fell silent, save for the wind. Daichi rushed to the children. They were still fast asleep, their cheeks warm, their breaths steady. When they woke, they asked where their mother had gone. He never had a good answer. Some say he grew old in that house, watching every winter storm with a mix of fear and hope, wondering if he'd see a pale figure in the snow again. But she never came back. And every year, when the snow begins to fall and the wind starts its long, lonely howl, people still tell this story. So now I'm wondering, what do you think? Was Yuki Onna really a spirit of the storm, slipping into human lives for a brief, borrowed warmth? Or is it just a tale to keep curious children from wandering too far into the mountains on cold winter nights? Okay, so let me tell you about what happened last night, because I'm still trying to wrap my head around it. It was late, and I was at home, writing out some, forest lollipops, if you know what I mean. I planned it. I was safe at home, lights low, just kind of letting my mind wander. I decided it'd be a good idea to put on this new vampire movie, kind of a modern Dracula vibe, to really feel it on a different level. At first, it was just intense in the usual way. Colors were deeper, sounds felt heavier, my thoughts were loud. But then there was this part of the movie where they're in a church, and there are all these paintings of Jesus and saints all over the walls. And suddenly, I couldn't focus on the dialogue at all. Instead, I just felt this wave, like the Holy Spirit or something like it, just gently bringing me back down to baseline. Not instantly, but in this slow, comforting way. I felt this warmth in my chest, like I was being held onto from the inside. And that's not normal for me. Usually, once things start going south on a trip, nothing can pull me back. But this time, I felt calm. Safe, even. It was like someone hit a spiritual reset button. While all that was happening, my dog Milo suddenly gets up out of nowhere. He walks over to this old armchair I keep by the wall. This chair that used to belong to my Grandma Rose. And he starts sniffing around behind it. Not in a casual way, either. He was searching, tracking something. But he wouldn't get too close. He'd look into my bedroom from there, but refused to go in. Just stayed at a distance, alert. He did this 3 separate times, and every single time I could feel the energy in the room shift right before he reacted. Like the air changed density or temperature around me for a second. I didn't see anything, but my body knew something was off. Eventually, I got up to check behind the chair myself. As I walked over, I felt this presence hovering just behind and a little above me, like somebody standing close, but not touching. When I turned my head up to the right, I saw this small, white light, almost like a soft, glowing orb, shoot off quickly and disappear. It wasn't a reflection, it moved with intention. It startled me so much, I actually gasped out loud. Right after that, my roommate's cat Luna casually strolls over to the exact same chair. Now this cat never bothers with that chair, ever. But she walked up to it, stared at it, sniffed around in the same places Milo did, and then, out of nowhere, jumps up onto it. She sits there, perfectly still, and just stares at me. 10 full minutes at least. Not that blank cat stare either. It was this very focused, almost knowing look, like, yeah, I see it too. And here's the wild part. She slept on that chair all night. She's actually been obsessed with it since. Normally, she never stays in one place for too long, but now it's like that chair is her spot. That has never happened before. Now, I've had that chair for years since Grandma Rose passed. It's special to me, but it's never felt active, if that makes sense. And last night, I didn't feel her exactly. It wasn't like, oh, Grandma's here. It was more like this curious, calm presence watching over me. Not judging, not fixing anything, just aware. It felt like whatever it was understood what I was going through, that it could sense both my sadness and the height of my altered state. There was no fear attached to it, just this strange peace, comfort even. Tonight though, nothing. My dog isn't reacting, the cat's more relaxed, and I don't feel any presence in the room. It's like whoever or whatever it was just came through for that moment and then moved on. All I know is, I wasn't looking for a sign. I wasn't trying to summon anything. It was my animals who first told me something was there. And between the comfort in that church scene, the strange light, the pets acting like they saw what I couldn't, and that deep sense of calm, yeah, something visited. I don't know who or what, but it felt kind. and it felt like it understood me better than I understood myself in that moment. So, let me tell you about the old place I used to live in. It was this creaky, overgrown hillside manor. The kind of house that looks like it should already have a ghost story attached when you first see it. And of course, it did. I just didn't know I was going to be part of it. The first time it happened, I remember waking up in the middle of the night, absolutely certain I wasn't alone. You know that feeling, right? When the room is dark, but you can feel something standing there before you even open your eyes. When I finally forced my eyes open, I saw them. Not fully solid, not exactly transparent, just these blue-white shapes, like faded versions of people. Shades. That's what I call them. They weren't always there, but when they came, they would stand right over me, leaning in, like they were trying to figure me out. And it was terrifying. I always had this sense that they knew I could see them, that was the whole problem. Most people can roll over and ignore that weird feeling. I couldn't. In those early nights, I had this little ritual. I'd wake up, see one or two of them hovering over me, and my first instinct was to slam my eyes shut and start talking. Out loud. I'd say, "Hey, I don't know who you are. I mean you no harm. Please let me live here, and I'll respect you and your home." I must have sounded ridiculous. Half asleep and scared, talking into the dark. Sometimes I'd keep my eyes closed the entire time, just whispering my little peace treaty. Sometimes I'd peek, just to see if they were still there. Usually, after that, they would fade away, and I could feel the room go back to normal. Back then, I really believed that if I acknowledged them, if I showed them I respected the space, they'd leave me alone. And for a while, that seemed to work. But there were nights that were worse. One time, I woke up and there were 3 of them. 3 men, all standing side by side next to my bed. Pale, blue-white, just outlines of people. I remember thinking, okay, this has to be a dream. So I shut my eyes, took a breath, opened them again. They were still there. They didn't move. They didn't reach for me. They just watched. I was so scared I grabbed the remote with shaking hands and turned on the TV, just for the noise and the light. I didn't even watch anything. I just needed something human in the room. I lay there for what felt like forever, heart pounding, until I finally passed out with the screen still flickering and the volume turned way down. I hated that manor. I really did. Looking back, there's this darkly funny image I have of myself, sitting up in bed in that old room, talking to the air. If there had been a camera recording from the corner of the ceiling, you'd just see me negotiating with empty space, maybe even arguing with what looked like nothing. Like, please stop turning my life into a horror movie, thanks. It wasn't just the shades around my bed, though. The house had other habits. There was a woman's spirit there, I'm pretty sure. I never saw her fully, not the way I did the shades, but I felt her. She liked to mess with things. I'd light candles to make the place feel cozy, and I'd walk out of the room for a second, come back, and the candles would be out. Not burned down, just blown out. No draft, no open windows, nothing. Sometimes I'd turn the bathroom tap on, leave for a moment, come back, and the water would be off. Not dripping, not slowing down, just off. Like someone had reached in and turned the handle. There was also this small girl I'd see sometimes. Or maybe it was the woman taking a different form. I never really knew. I started calling the little girl Elsie in my head, just so she'd feel like less of a stranger. Whenever I came home, whether it was the middle of the day or late at night, I'd get this heaviness in my chest as I walked up the path. The front of the manor had a glass door, and sometimes I'd see a shape inside, like a small figure watching me from the hallway, or someone standing on the balcony above, just waiting. I could feel them before I even put the key in the lock. When I climbed the wooden stairs up to my floor, I would never look all the way up toward the next level. That became a rule for me. Don't look up. Just get to your room. But out of the corner of my eye, I'd sometimes catch these bare feet on the landing. Just the feet. Just someone was standing there, barefoot, watching me pass. Or I'd feel this pressure, this awareness, as if eyes were on the back of my neck. The air would go completely still. No sound from outside. No creaks from the old wood. Nothing. Just me and that feeling. And it wasn't once in a while. It was daily. It got so bad that when I drove up after work, I wouldn't even look at the building. I'd park, keep my head down, grab my bag, and just walk straight in, like I was trying not to make eye contact with a wild animal. If I could avoid noticing them, I felt like they'd avoid noticing me. Over time, I changed how I reacted. I stopped talking out loud at night, stopped acknowledging every little flicker and shadow. Eventually, I realized that if I didn't give them my attention, if I didn't lean into the fear, they mostly left me alone. So I trained myself. Don't look. Don't engage. Don't invite. And slowly, the nights became quieter. Not because they weren't there, but because I stopped meeting them halfway. The funny thing is, the moment I moved out of that manor into a perfectly normal little apartment across town, everything stopped. No shades standing over my bed. No candles mysteriously going out. No faucets turning themselves off. No bare feet at the top of the stairs. Just sleep. Just silence. Sometimes I wonder if they were tied to that house, or if they were drawn to me and just decided to let me go. But honestly, I don't dig too deep into that question. All I know is, in that old hillside manor, I was never really alone. And now, in my new place, when I close my eyes at night, there's no one standing over me. And I'm okay with not seeing shades anymore. I think they've had enough of me. And I've definitely had enough of them. So, there are 5 of us in my family. My mom, my dad, my 2 sisters, Mira and Lila, and me. I'm Arun. Back then, we were living in this small, rented house at the end of a quiet lane. It wasn't creepy at first or anything. It was just normal. But after a few weeks, I started noticing strange little things whenever I was alone. Like, I'd be in the kitchen making tea, and suddenly a spoon would slip off the counter and clatter to the floor, even though it was nowhere near the edge. Or I'd hang my shirt neatly on a hanger, walk away, and a minute later I'd hear a soft thud and find it on the ground. Sometimes a whole row of clothes would tilt and drop like someone had brushed past them. It wasn't just once or twice, it kept happening. My younger sister, Lila, started mentioning similar stuff. She'd say, "Arun, my school uniform just fell off the hanger again. I swear I didn't touch it." But whenever we told Mom, Dad, or Mira, they never experienced any of it themselves. They'd just shrug and say things like, "It's just the wind. You're tired. You're imagining it." Or my dad's favorite, "Gravity, beta. Clothes fall. It's okay." But I always had this feeling like there was something around us. Not loud or dramatic, just a quiet presence, watching. Anyway, fast forward to when our rental agreement ended. We finally found a new apartment, brighter and more modern than the old place. Everyone was tired but excited. On the last day, while most of the moving was happening, I was at the office, so I only came to the new house in the evening. That night, I decided to prank my mom. I don't even know why I thought that was a good idea, but I did. I went up to her while she was folding blankets and said, as casually as I could, "Ma, I didn't want to tell you this before, but in that old house, I used to see a woman sometimes." She stopped folding and looked at me. I continued, trying not to grin. "She wasn't trying to harm me or anything," I said. "But when I was alone, she'd come near my bed and just stand there. Sometimes she had a small baby in her arms. She'd just sit on the floor and stare quietly." Inside, I was laughing like, wait till she freaks out. But instead, her face just drained. All the color left. She put the blanket down and whispered, "Arun, stop. Wait till Mira comes home." I was confused. I thought she was just being dramatic, so I was like, "Ma, relax, I'm joking." But she shook her head and said, "No, just wait till your sister comes. Don't say anything yet." So I thought, okay, I'll keep the joke going a little longer and then tell her I made it up when everyone's here. A bit later, my elder sister Mira came home from work. The minute she walked in, Mom's eyes filled with tears. She grabbed Mira's hand and said, voice shaking, "Your brother also saw that woman." That word, also, hit me like a punch. I remember just staring at her, my smile fading. "What do you mean, also?" I asked. Mom looked between the two of us, and then she told me something that made my whole body go cold. She said that for months, Mira had been seeing a woman in that old house too. The same woman with a small baby. She'd appear near Mira's bed at night, or in the hallway, just standing there. Mira had never told me or Lila because she didn't want to scare us, and Mom didn't want to encourage our imaginations, so she kept it private. But it got worse. Mom said that a few days before we decided to move out, Mira saw the woman more clearly than ever. In that moment, the woman looked at her with this angry expression and said, "Don't leave this house." When I heard that, I swear, every hair on my arm stood up. My silly prank suddenly felt like the worst idea I'd ever had, but she just shook her head. "You're only saying that now because you heard about your sister," she said. "You both saw her. You're just denying it so I won't worry." No matter how much I insisted, she didn't believe me. Honestly, a part of me started wondering if maybe those small things I'd felt, like the weight of eyes on me, the random chills, weren't just in my head after all. A few days after we settled into the new apartment, things calmed down a bit. No creepy corners, no dark hallways. It felt safer, lighter. We all tried to forget about the old house. Then one night, Mira told us something that brought it all rushing back. We were sitting in the living room after dinner when she said quietly, "I need to tell you what happened last night." She said she'd been sleeping and had one of those half-awake, half-dreaming moments. She felt like she was still in bed, but somehow aware of the room. And in that fuzzy state, she heard a familiar woman's voice. It said, clear and close, right by her ear, "Come meet me. I'm standing outside." Mira told us she felt this strong pull, like she had to listen. In her dream, she got out of bed and walked toward the window. Her hand was literally on the latch. She was about to open it when suddenly she snapped fully awake, heart racing, still standing near the window in the dark room. She didn't know if she had actually walked there in her sleep or just dreamed it, but the feeling stayed with her. She said the voice was the same woman, the same tone. And here's the part that really unsettles me. In this new place, those small, strange things started happening again. A spoon sliding off the table when nobody's near it. The bathroom door creaking open just a little when there's no draft. Clothes slipping off hangers. Light taps on the wall when it's late and everyone else is asleep. And somehow, it's still mostly just me and Lila who notice these things. Mira brushes it off now, says she doesn't want to think about it. Mom and Dad still claim it's just the building, or pipes, or wind. But sometimes, when I'm alone at night and I hear something small fall in the kitchen, or I feel that quiet pressure in the room, like someone's there but not quite visible, I catch myself thinking, what if it was never the house? What if something decided to come with us? So, this was about 9 months ago, right at the end of winter. For a few nights in a row, my sleep had just fallen apart. I'd lie there, exhausted, but my brain refused to switch off. You know that feeling where you're tired in your bones, but your mind is running laps? That was me. One morning, after barely sleeping again, I just snapped and thought, okay, that's it. I'm going for a run. Maybe if I exhaust myself, I'll finally sleep. It was freezing. The kind of cold where the air bites your face. There was thick fog outside, and it had been so bad that schools and colleges had declared 2 days of holiday. Still, I got up at around 4:45 a.m., pulled on a pair of shorts, a t-shirt, and my running shoes, and stepped out. So, for context, my home is near the Bagmati River. People bring their loved ones' bodies there for cremation or burial. It's that kind of place. And I've always been the person who doesn't believe in ghosts or spirits or anything like that. I used to laugh those things off. Anyway, I started running. From the very beginning, something felt off. My balance felt weird, like my body was out of sync. I told myself it was probably just the sleep deprivation. It was still really dark, and the fog made everything even heavier. But I could see a couple of old men riding past on bicycles. That made me feel a bit safer, like, okay, it's fine. Life is normal. I'm overthinking. And then, it happened. I was running near a small local school I'd passed 100 times before. Suddenly, this cold shiver shot straight down my spine. At the same moment, I heard this sharp, cracking sound. It was so strange, like a mix between a bird screeching in a horror movie and a car slamming its brakes really fast. It sounded like, Kia, this high, sharp, tearing sound. Right then, a dim green light flashed in front of me, like someone flicked a torch on and off really fast. And I felt, very clearly, like something was watching me from above, over my right shoulder. All of this happened in maybe a tenth of a second. It was so fast that my brain couldn't catch up. But my body reacted before my thoughts did. I felt this intense fear, like something was trying to pull me out of my own body. I remember thinking, very clearly, if I take even one more step forward, I might die. My legs suddenly went weak. All the strength just disappeared. I could feel the ground under my feet as if I was barefoot, even though I still had my shoes on. My whole body went numb, and I just knew I couldn't keep going. So I turned around. I started walking back home, half expecting to faint in the middle of the road. I kept telling myself, "You're hallucinating. It's just the lack of sleep. It's nothing. Just reach home." Somehow I made it back safely. I didn't tell anyone, because honestly, I knew I'd just get scolded for going out to run that early in the cold. I went straight to my room and just sat there, replaying everything. The weird part is, I'd been using that same road for 2 years during high school. I used to catch my school bus at around 5:20 a.m., and I always walked that way. Same season, same timing. Sometimes I even went right down near the river, near the graves, and nothing ever happened. Not once. So part of me kept saying, there's no way something suddenly went wrong now. It has to be in your head. And to be honest, a week before all this, I'd been smoking weed for about 6 or 7 days in a row. But by the time this happened, I'd already been clean for a few days. Still, I started doubting myself. Is this withdrawal? Am I going crazy? Is this just my brain misfiring? After a few hours, the whole incident started to feel unreal. Like a dream you wake up from and can't fully grab onto. I told myself, whatever it was, at least I got to experience something strange. But then things got worse. What's wrong with me? Why am I like this? My appetite vanished. I couldn't focus. I lost interest in everything. I didn't even want to touch my phone, which for me was a big red flag. Finally, I told my dad, let's call him Ajay, about how I was feeling. But not the full story about the green light and the river. Just the anxiety, the panic, the not sleeping. He told me it sounded like anxiety, and that he'd had something similar when he was young too. That made me feel a little less alone. We went to a doctor, got some meds, but honestly, not much changed. Later, my family took me to a local shaman, a spiritual healer everyone in the area knows. We call him Baba Hari. I was still half convinced this was all just in my head. Maybe some psychological stuff from quitting weed and not sleeping. But when I described what happened, he looked at me very calmly and said I'd been scared very, very badly, and not just by my own mind. He said it happened beside a specific tree near the school. I hadn't even noticed any tree at the time. I was too shaken. But later, when I went back during the day, there actually was a big old tree exactly where everything had happened. Baba Hari told me I was under the influence of an evil spirit, something they call a chudail, the shadow of a young woman, maybe around 21. who lingered near that area, not far from my home. He said that dim green flash I'd seen was a sign of her presence. And I remember thinking, if I hadn't come here, I'd probably still be blaming myself, thinking it was just weed withdrawal and my own weakness. I'd die feeling guilty for disappointing my parents. Even after that, though, I was in a bad place. Very depressed, totally hopeless. I really believed I might not survive it. Not just physically, but mentally. The anxiety got so bad that my parents decided to take me to a psychiatrist too. The psychiatrist listened, diagnosed me with an anxiety disorder, and prescribed medication. He told me to keep taking it for at least 2 years. I'll be honest, I only took it for about 5 months. But between the medicine, my parents' support, time passing, and maybe whatever Baba Hari did spiritually, slowly, I started to feel like myself again. The nights got quieter. The panic attacks faded. The dark thoughts lost their grip. And today, I'm okay. I'm actually fine. When I look back at that morning by the river, the cold, the fog, the scream, the green light, it still gives me chills. But I also feel weirdly grateful. It forced me to face my mind, my fears, and even parts of my belief system I used to laugh at. Whether someone wants to call it a spirit, anxiety, sleep deprivation, or all of the above, for me, it was real. It was terrifying, and it changed me. But I came out on the other side. So, hey, I'm 21 now, and I've had a bunch of weird little moments in my life that I definitely label as not normal. This one has been living rent-free in my head for years, so I figured I'd tell it like I remember it. Back then, I was around 9 or 10. My mom had moved us into this new place a couple years before, and the house was just off. The layout was strange, and the energy felt heavy, like the air was thicker than it should be. Instead of a normal front door facing the street, the house was sort of turned sideways. You had to walk down this narrow side path, go through a metal gate, and then you'd hit the actual front door. Because of that, we ended up hanging out a lot in this weird mix of front yard, backyard by the gate. That's where we'd wait for people to arrive. I've got an older brother and an older sister who lived a few hours away back then, like a 2 to 3 hour drive. And there's a pretty big age gap, like 12 to 13 years. They'd come visit when they could and stay for a weekend or a few days. Because of traffic and the distance, they usually showed up late, like between 9 p.m. and midnight. I was obsessed with them, so I always begged to stay up so I could be the one to open the gate when they arrived. On this particular night, it was my brother who was coming down. I'll call him Alex. That alone was rare, because he was always the busy one with work and friends. My sister, let's call her Maya, couldn't make it that trip, and I remember missing her a lot. We're a tight little trio. Whenever Maya visited, she never really called me by my real name. She always used my nickname, Bug, or Bugs, when she was being silly. She'd stand outside the gate and call, "Bug! Bugs!" and I'd go running to let her in. So anyway, that night, it's late, closer to 12:30 or 1 a.m., and I'm outside with Alex and my stepdad. My stepdad, who I'll call Rafa, is from this tiny farming town in central Mexico. He's one of those people who fully believes in paranormal stuff. His attitude is basically, if it's weird and you can't explain it, don't mess with it. And he loves to tease me about getting scared. We're all out there in the yard by the gate, just talking, and the conversation drifts into scary stories. Rafa starts sharing things he's heard back in his hometown. Voices in the fields, lights where there shouldn't be lights, that kind of thing. Then Alex starts talking about what he saw when he was younger, staying with relatives in Mexico, and even strange things he'd noticed in the house where I was born. I remember I was really into it, hanging on to every word of this creepy story Alex was telling. He was in the middle of describing something weird he'd seen in the hallway one night when, clear as day, from the direction of the gate, I hear, "Bug!" Then again, louder, urgent, "Bugs!" It was my sister's voice. Not kind of like her voice, not similar vibe. It was her voice. I didn't even think. I just shot up and ran straight to the gate, heart pounding, totally expecting to see Maya standing there with her overnight bag, laughing. There was no one. The street was quiet, the gate was closed, and there wasn't even a car driving by. Just that weird, heavy silence. As I'm standing there confused, I hear Alex behind me, rushing up. He looks freaked out and goes, "Wait, where is she?" We just stare at each other. He was about 24 or 25 then, a grown man, and I was this little 10-year-old kid, and we both heard the exact same thing. He asked me, "You heard her too, right? She called you." And I was like, "Yeah, she said bug, and then bugs. Twice." And his face just went pale, because that's exactly what he heard too. We go back over it, trying to make sense of it. It was Maya's voice. It came from the gate area. She always called me that nickname when she arrived. We go tell Rafa what happened, and even he gets unsettled, which was scary, because he was usually the one laughing things off or making jokes. He kind of looks around, shakes his head, and goes, "Bueno, ya métanse." Basically, "Okay, go inside." So we do. We lock the door, sit there for a minute, and then all three of us decide to call Maya just to make sure she isn't somehow outside or on her way. She picks up, sounding totally normal, a little sleepy. She tells us she's at her apartment, nowhere near us, and she hasn't left the city at all that night. She definitely wasn't outside our house, and she definitely hadn't called my nickname through a gate. After we hang up, it gets really quiet. I remember sitting there, this little kid on the couch, realizing that whatever had called out to me knew my sister's voice, knew exactly what she called me, and used that to get my attention. To this day, I still don't know what that was, but it wasn't just me imagining things. My brother heard it too, word for word, and that's the part that still gives me chills. So, this is still one of the strangest, and honestly one of the saddest, things that's ever happened to me. It was about 5 years ago, but even now I sometimes lie awake thinking, was that somehow my fault? Or do I have some kind of weird power I don't understand? I know it sounds irrational, but that's where my mind goes. Anyway, let me start from the beginning. 5 years back, me and my friend, let's call him Mikael, were working as car bodywork apprentices in Norway. We were the same age, went to school together, messed around in the same hallways. We were close. The kind of close where you don't even have to say much. You just look at each other and start laughing. He was honestly one of the kindest people I've ever met. Soft-spoken, always ready to help, but still the first one to crack a stupid joke at work and pull everyone out of a bad mood. One day, we were at the workshop, and I was working on this special car, the kind they use to transport caskets and dead bodies. A hearse. I remember the smell of metal and paint, that cold, echoey feeling of the garage. Mikhail walked over to me like he always did, joking around, talking rubbish, just being himself. And I, being an idiot, looked at the back of the hearse and said, "Would you dare to lie down in there? Because I sure as hell wouldn't." He grinned, of course. He always took a dare. "Yeah, why not?" he said. And before I could say anything else, he climbed into the back and lay down. I closed the door, laughing, expecting him to last maybe 5 seconds before knocking to get out. After about 20 seconds, I opened the back again. And there he was, lying perfectly still, hands folded over his chest, just like a real dead person. Exactly the way you imagine someone in a coffin. For a second, it gave me chills. It was too realistic. Too wrong. I tried to shake it off and joked. "So, did you feel anything? How was it, huh? Meet any ghosts in there?" He got out, shrugged a little and said, "Nah, it was just cold." We laughed. Just another dumb moment between friends. We didn't think anything of it. No superstition, no bad feelings strong enough to stop us. It was just one of those stupid young guy jokes that you never imagine will mean anything. But then came the day I'll never forget. 1 or 2 weeks later, my phone rang. It was my boss. His voice was different, heavy. He said, "I'm so sorry to tell you this, but Mikhail is dead." For a few seconds, I honestly thought he was joking, like it was some messed up prank. Then he kept talking, and my brain just froze. I can't even remember his exact words, just fragments. Car accident. On the way to a course. In another town. It felt like someone had reached inside my chest and just squeezed everything. Mikhail had been driving to this work-related course. We had actually planned to go together. Right up to the last moment, the plan was, we ride there, side by side. And then, for some reason I still can't clearly explain, I decided not to go. Last minute. No real reason. Just, I'll skip it. So he went alone. He died in a tunnel. The tunnel is near my town. The strange thing is, he didn't even live there. He was from another town. The tunnel is called something else in real life, but let's just call it Nordhaven Tunnel. I lived in Nordhaven. He didn't. At first, it just felt like a horrible accident. Wrong place, wrong time. But a few years later, I found out more details. And that's when everything started to feel off. I found out that Mikhail's car had crossed into oncoming traffic and collided with a truck. And the truck driver? He was from my country. I'm a foreigner living in Norway. Of all the drivers on that road, of all the trucks he could have met in that exact moment, it was someone from my own country behind the wheel. And there's more. Mikhail died in December. Exactly 1 year earlier, also in December, another guy from our job had died. He had just finished his apprenticeship and then passed away from cancer. Let's call him Jonas. So one December, the newly finished apprentice dies of cancer. A year later, another apprentice, my friend, dies in a car accident. Two young guys, same workplace, both apprentices, both gone in December. I know it might just be coincidence, but when you're the one standing in the middle of it, it feels like too much. And my mind kept going back to that moment in the hearse. My friend lies in the back of a car meant for the dead. A short time later, he dies. I was supposed to be with him that day, in the car to the course, but I wasn't. The truck that hit him was driven by someone from my country. Another apprentice from the same job had died just a year before. All these little pieces, piling up. It started to mess with my head. I kept asking myself, did I do something? Was it a sign? Is there something wrong with me? Logically, I know I don't control accidents. I know people die every day. I know coincidences happen. But the human brain doesn't always care about logic, especially when it's grieving and guilty and confused. And there's another part to my story. Let's call it part 2. It's not directly about Mikhail's accident. It's more about my family, and about this feeling that maybe, just maybe, there's something in my bloodline, some pattern, some shadow that keeps following us. After I first shared this story online, someone commented on my post before it got deleted. They wrote something like, "I hope you don't have any genes or problems related to this. Try to remember the good times. I won't be able to answer you why." And that stuck with me. Because that's exactly it, isn't it? None of us can really answer why. We can list the facts, draw lines between moments, circle the dates on the calendar. But the why just sits there, silent. All I know is this. I had a friend named Mikhail. We laughed together. We worked together. One day, as a joke, he lay down in the back of a hearse and folded his hands like a dead man. Not long after, he actually died. And I'm still here, years later, trying to make peace with a question that probably has no real answer. But I'm trying to remember the good times. His stupid jokes, his kindness, the way he could make a whole workshop laugh with one sentence. If there's one thing I hold on to, it's that. He wasn't just the guy from the story. He was my friend. And he was so much more than the way he died. You know, before I start, I should say this. I don't live in America, and Russian is my native language. I'm from Kazakhstan, from the steppe, and I'm actually translating this in my head as I talk to you. All my life, I've seen a lot of strange things, but I still consider myself a skeptic. I'm that annoying person who always tries to find a logical explanation first. Always. Even when logic is the last thing that fits. I could sit with you for hours and tell you stories that, honestly, I still can't fully explain. Like the UFO almost my entire class saw once. We stood there at recess, all of us, staring at the sky and then arguing about it the whole break. Or the time, when I was a kid, that a Quran fell off a high shelf in my grandmother's house, even though no one was near it and there was no draft. My mom swears that house was, let's say, active. Footsteps, whispers, little things moving around. She talks about it so calmly that it's even scarier. And for some reason, a lot of these stories are connected with cemeteries. My classmates once told me something that really shook me. They were sure they saw me walking calmly through the cemetery in the middle of the day, even waved to me, only to find out later I'd been at home the whole time. To this day, they insist it was me. I insist it wasn't. We just look at each other like, well, okay then. Just so we're clear, I don't have any mental issues. I'm not someone who scares easily. And I always look for logic first. I've also had sleep paralysis, maybe a couple dozen times in my life. If you've ever had it, you know how it is. Your body is frozen. Your eyes are the only thing that move, and your brain happily serves you the worst horrors it can find. But by now, that doesn't scare me much. I even thought once, it would be kind of interesting to feel that intense fear again. But my logical brain just doesn't let it happen anymore. Anyway, that's all just to give you some context before I tell you this story. The one time I genuinely thought I might die. So, I was about 16, maybe 15 and a half, a winter evening. Back then, my friends and I trained like we were in the army. At least, in our heads it was like the harsh Russian army. Running, push-ups, wrestling, carrying each other on our backs, that kind of thing. We took it way too seriously. One night, after training, it was already dark, around 8:30 or so. We finished our exercises, said goodbye, and everyone started heading home. My friend, let's call him Timur, lived close by, but he was always uncomfortable in the dark. Not like a little kid afraid of monsters. More like he just hated being alone outside at night. He asked me, "Hey, can you walk with me to my place?" It was sort of on my way anyway, so I said sure. To explain the route, my usual way home goes along a road that passes near a cemetery. That's normal for us. The cemetery isn't far from the village. It's just there. So I walked Timur to his house. We joked a bit at the door, and then I turned around to head home alone. That's when I realized something. If I cut between two cemeteries instead of going around them, it would be the shortest way home. In winter, when it's cold and dark, the shortest way always looks like the smartest way. The sky that night was completely clear, not a single cloud. The moon was almost full, bright enough that I honestly didn't even need a flashlight. The snow on the step made everything glow. If you've ever seen moonlight on clean snow, you know how bright it can get. You can see your own shadow like it's daytime. So there I am, walking along the snowy road between two rows of graves and enclosures. One cemetery on the left, one on the right. It's quiet. Too quiet, actually. The kind of quiet where you can hear your own breath and the crunch of your boots. At some point, I catch myself thinking, I keep seeing something move from shadow to shadow, like something jumping between them. Of course, I immediately tell myself, relax, it's your imagination. Shadows, branches, whatever. You're just tired from training. I keep walking, but now I'm glancing around more often. Left, right, behind. You know how it is. You try to act calm, but your body doesn't believe you. Then my attention sticks to one specific place. There's a square cemetery with a tree growing in the middle, and right next to it is one of those tall pyramid-shaped mausoleums. I'm walking, looking around, and my eyes keep sliding back to that tree. At first, I can't figure out what's wrong with it. It's winter. All the other trees are bare, just branches against the sky. You can see through them, see the graves and fences behind them. But this one, I squint a little and suddenly realize this tree looks like it still has leaves. Not real leaves, but its crown is dense, solid, dark. The others are like skeletons. This one is just a black mass. So now I'm walking forward, trying to be logical. Maybe it's a different kind of tree. Maybe it's a bush. Maybe there's some cloth or something stuck in it. I keep analyzing it. At the same time, I just can't take my eyes off it. My steps are automatic. My whole attention is on this leafy tree. And then it hits me. Those aren't leaves. That's not even a tree anymore. The black shape has grown. It's become too thick, too heavy, if that makes sense. I suddenly understand that what I'm looking at is no longer a tree, but a massive shadow shaped like a tree. Taller than it should be, wider than it should be. And somehow, without me noticing when it happened, that dark shape has stretched and merged with the shadow of the pyramid mausoleum beside it. I stop, I look at it, and I realize this is not a trick of the eye anymore, at least not the usual kind. The shadow, this huge, dark thing, reaches out over the snow. And here's the worst part. The bottom edge of the shadow is no longer behind the pyramid or under it. It's in the open. It's lying on the snow between me and the mausoleum. There's absolutely nothing there that could cast such a shadow. No tree that tall, no pole, no building. Just open steppe, smooth snow, starlight, and this unnatural darkness stretching across the ground. The distance between me and that pyramidal grave is maybe the length of a small football field. And in the middle of that empty white space, there's this shadow, rising up as tall as a 3-story building. My body starts to react before my brain does. I feel that familiar sensation from sleep paralysis trying to creep in. Your limbs get heavy. Your breathing starts to slow down. Your muscles want to lock. It's like my body is about to switch into observer mode, the one where you're awake inside, but your body won't obey you. And here's the strange part. At that exact moment, I'm curious. There's a part of me that wants to step toward it. I want to know what it is. I want to see what happens if I walk straight into that shadow. Will I pass through it? Will it move? Will it notice me? But there's another part of me, very loud, very primal, screaming. If you go into that shadow, you're not coming back the same. Or at all. So I stand there, staring at it, and I feel the choice forming inside me. Curiosity or survival. And for once, thank God, survival wins. Without taking my eyes off the shadow, I force my foot to move backward. It feels like I'm pushing through thick mud. Then the other foot. One step, another, then another. The further I move away, the easier it gets. My muscles slowly unlock. My breathing evens out, and I feel control returning to my body. With every meter I put between myself and that shadow, it gets smaller. It thins out, shrinks, settles. Eventually, it looks like it did at the beginning. just a tree next to a pyramid-shaped grave, with a normal winter shadow under the moonlight. I don't know how long I watched it, maybe a few seconds, maybe a full minute. Then I made a very simple, very wise decision. I turned away from that place, walked around the cemetery, and took a different road. That road had lanterns, ugly yellow lights, ice on the ground, dog tracks in the snow. But it was the most beautiful, comforting thing I'd ever seen. In the end, nothing happened in the physical sense. I got home in one piece. But inside, I knew I had gotten dangerously close to something I should not have approached. Whether it was a trick of the brain, some kind of hallucination, or something we don't have words for, I still don't know. I only know how it felt. So here's the conclusion I've drawn for myself, and maybe it'll be useful to you too. If you ever find yourself staring at a shadow, or at some strange shape, and you feel that weird pull, like it's hypnotizing you, like your body wants to shut down while your eyes stay open, don't play the hero. Don't test it. Don't see what happens. Step back. Break eye contact if you can. Listen to your body. If every nerve in you is screaming to get away, trust that instinct. In my case, the fear of death turned out to be stronger than my curiosity. And that probably saved me from doing something truly stupid. I'm still a skeptic. I still look for logic. But I also respect that there are things, especially in places like cemeteries, in the middle of the steppe at night, that sit right on the edge of what we understand. And if you ever walk between two cemeteries under a bright winter moon, I genuinely hope all you see are normal, boring trees. So, let me tell you a story about my dreams. When I was a kid, maybe first or second grade, I used to have this same dream over and over, where I was falling off a cliff, just straight down. My stomach would drop, my heart would be pounding, and right before I hit the ground, I'd always jerk awake. You've probably had something like that, right? That instant panic when you realize you're falling, and your whole body is like, nope, we're out of here, and wakes you up. After a while, I got tired of it. I remember one day, I must have been 7 or 8, lying in bed after another one of those dreams, and I thought, okay, next time, I'm not waking up. I want to see what happens if I actually hit the bottom. So the next time the dream came, I knew it. I was falling again, wind rushing past, that huge empty feeling in my chest. In the dream, I was freaking out, but somewhere in the back of my mind, I was like, no, stay, don't wake up, just see what happens. It felt like I was falling forever, like I had hit terminal velocity, and there was no way out. The ground was racing up toward me, and right at the point where I thought, I cannot handle one more second of this, everything changed. I slowed down. It was like someone gently turned the gravity dial down from a 10 to a 1. My body kind of hovered, and instead of smashing into the ground, I just floated down and touched it, as soft as if I'd stepped off a curb. And that was it. No impact, no pain. Just this huge wave of relief. After that, I stopped having those terrifying falling dreams. If I was in the air at all, something different would happen. I'd just take control and start flying, like a low-budget Superman knockoff. I'd be gliding over cities, fields, oceans, wherever my brain decided to drop me. And the cool thing was, the moment I started flying, I'd realize, oh, I'm dreaming. I'm in a dream right now. This was before I'd ever heard the term lucid dreaming. This was pre-internet, back in the late 70s, early 80s. I just thought, wow, it would be amazing if I could do this on purpose every night. It didn't happen right away, but over a few months I kind of trained myself. At first, I couldn't control the dream from the beginning, but once I was inside a dream, I'd know it was a dream. Even if I didn't have full control, there was that awareness, like this little narrator in my head going, relax, this isn't real. You're safe. Over the years, that awareness turned into actual control. At some point, I realized if I wanted to change something in the dream, I could. If I wanted to just let my mind run the show, I could do that too. I started treating it like a collaboration between me and my sleeping brain. And that's when I started using lucid dreaming to deal with nightmares. See, nightmares become a lot less scary when you know you're dreaming. Not great for the nightmare, but great for you. Instead of waking up the second something horrible happened, I'd stay. I'd be like, okay, if this is my dream, then I get superpowers. I get tools. I get backup. Sometimes it was like one of those old horror movies where the kids fight back using their dream powers. Except in my version, I actually won. I even had a dream once where this horror movie-style villain, like a mashup of every slasher character you can think of, showed up. And instead of running, I literally thought, nope, my house, my rules. And I took him out. It felt amazing. All of that got me really interested in dreams in general. I'd wake up thinking about them, writing bits down, wondering what they meant. Later on, when I finally did get internet access, I started searching for other people who'd had the same kinds of experiences. Before that, I'd just pick up random books about dreams from the library and obsess over them. There were a few dreams where I'd meet someone who felt different. They didn't feel like a part of my own mind. They felt too specific, too alive, like they had their own inner world that wasn't just mine. It made me wonder if, somehow, I was sharing a dream with someone else. So one night, while lucid, I met this person. Let's call them Riley. They had that same distinct presence, like they weren't just a background character. And in the dream, I thought, okay, this is it. This is the kind of person I've been curious about. Right there, inside the dream, I explained the idea to them. I said, look, if this is real, if you're not just part of my imagination, then we should come up with a password. A simple word. Something we can say if we ever meet in real life. That way, if we both remember it, we'll know this wasn't just in my head. We agreed it had to be something ordinary, something you could slip into conversation without sounding too strange. And we both promised, still in the dream, to try really hard to remember each other and that word when we woke up, even though we knew how quickly dreams fade. The word we picked was something simple, like lantern. Just an everyday word, nothing mystical. But inside that dream, it felt charged, almost sacred. Then time passed. This was around high school for me, and life moved on. Eventually, I went off to college in a different city, up in Seattle. I wasn't really thinking about the dream anymore. I just remembered that feeling, and that there was a word, and a person, and a promise. One day I got off a bus downtown, right near this busy intersection where everyone's rushing around, and someone got off at the same stop. We were walking in the same direction, and we kind of glanced at each other, with that weird little spark of recognition you sometimes get, like, do I know you? Have we met before? We both did that awkward half-smile, half-stare thing, and I had this strange feeling in my chest, this little nudge. Say the word. Try it. So as we were talking, small talk at first, just where we were headed, what we were studying, I casually slipped the word lantern into the conversation. Totally out of context, but said in a way that you could almost justify. The moment I said it, their eyes went wide. They stopped walking, looked straight at me, and said, "Wait, hold on. It's you." My whole body lit up. I got chills. We both kind of freaked out, in that excited, slightly shaky way, because we both remembered. It wasn't vague like, oh, I had a dream kind of like that once. It was specific. We started trading details from the dream, where we were standing, what the place looked like, the exact conversation about the password. We were almost whispering the word, even though to anyone passing by, it would have just sounded like we really liked talking about lanterns or camping gear or something. Out of context, it was nothing. But to us, it was proof. I don't remember everything we said after that. I just remember thinking, this is wild. I actually met someone in real life that I first met in a dream. We eventually went our separate ways. I honestly can't even picture their face clearly anymore. Dreams are like that, and honestly, so is memory. But that moment stuck with me. That feeling stuck with me. It was the moment I stopped thinking of dreams as just some private little movie my brain plays when the lights go out. It made me start to wonder if dreams are some kind of built-in network, a kind of organic bio-net, if you will, where maybe, just maybe, our minds can overlap for a while. I don't know for sure what happened. I can't prove any of it, but I know how it felt. And every time I catch myself falling in a dream now, I still remember that first time I chose not to wake up, and how everything changed the moment I decided to hit the ground. Two weird things happened in 2 days. The first one was a few nights ago, in broad daylight actually. I was in bed with my baby boy. His name's Milo. He's just turned 1. And my little sister Camille, she's 7 and from France, was sleeping beside us. I must have drifted off, because the next thing I know, Camille is nudging me awake, and Milo kind of sits up on my lap, all warm and floppy, like babies do. I'm propped halfway up in bed, still groggy, and then I hear this little crackling noise. It's coming from this small radio we shoved in a box by the bedroom door. That catches my attention, so I look toward the door. The door is barely open, just a crack. But through that crack, I see something pass by. It looked like an armful of hair. Not normal hair, but this massive, heavy clump of dry, matted, wiry brown hair sliding past, like it was attached to something walking by. I know that sounds weird, but it didn't look like hair from a hairbrush or from the shower drain. It looked dense, like it had weight to it. Imagine if someone needle felted a huge cloud of dry brown hair, and then there were bits of gray and blonde woven through it. Little strands sticking out in all directions like thin wires. It almost looked textured, like it would scratch if you touched it. And here's the thing. The door was only open a sliver, but there was so much of it passing by that I knew whatever it was had to be big. Because I was holding Milo, he was blocking my view of the lower part, so I couldn't see if there were legs, feet, anything like that. Just that awful, thick, matted hair sliding past the crack. For context, we've got this very classy, very DIY baby gate situation going on. Our landlord doesn't want us installing a proper gate because it might mark the wood. So we're using my son's old foam climbing block as a kind of barrier across the door. On top of that, we stacked a couple of boxes, and in one of those boxes is this little handheld radio that's still turned on. It sits directly across from the bedroom door. So I'm staring at the door. The radio is crackling by itself, and this hairy thing just glides across the opening. I blurt out, super loud, "What the bleep was that?" Camille sees my face and instantly knows something is wrong. She yanks the blanket up over her eyes, and in French, she whispers that she's scared. I can hear her voice getting shaky. I start calling for my partner, Leo, who that night was sleeping in Milo's room, because Camille hadn't wanted to sleep alone in there, so he gave up his spot. Camille joins in. Now she's actually crying and yelling too, because at this point I'm thinking, okay, someone has broken into our home. Some weirdo is in the hallway. This is it. This is how people die in horror movies. Leo rushes in, all confused, and I tell him there's someone in the house, that I saw something go by the door. He does a full sweep of the apartment, checking closets, the bathroom, under beds, everything. There's nothing. No one. That was on the 13th. I tried to shrug it off, maybe I imagined it. Maybe it was a shadow. Maybe I'm just exhausted. I want there to be a normal reason. I always do. But then tonight happened. Tonight was worse. It's about 3:30 in the morning. Leo likes to sit out on the patio late at night, scrolling or just unwinding, so I assumed he was out there. I was in bed with Milo again. He'd fallen asleep curled up against me. I woke up more fully this time because I was trying to find my phone. I knew I'd fallen asleep with it nearby, but when I pat around the bed, the pillow, under the blanket, it's just gone. As I'm doing this, I hear it. Creaking. Loud, steady creaking. Right in front of my bedroom door. Now, I'm not a big person, but I'm definitely not delicate either. I tried the next day to recreate that sound by just walking there, and I had to stomp to get it that loud. Whatever this was, it sounded like it had real weight. Anyway, back to the moment. Milo is asleep in one of my arms, and I'm trying desperately not to wake him as I feel around for my phone with my free hand. My heart is pounding. My brain is doing that thing where it's like, stay calm, be logical, don't panic. Meanwhile, the creaking is still going. No pauses, just this relentless, heavy shifting outside my door. I call out for Leo, sort of halfway between a whisper and a shout, because I don't want to wake Milo. No answer. The creaking keeps going. I start thinking, okay, if this thing, whatever it is, shows itself in that door crack, I'm done. I will either pass out, or cry, or both. Maybe all three. I call Leo's name again, louder this time, honestly expecting Milo to start fussing, but he doesn't even stir. He's still breathing all slow and peaceful against me, completely oblivious. I carefully put him down in the middle of the bed and keep searching for my phone. When I fell asleep earlier, he was below me in the middle of the mattress, so I figured maybe the phone slipped under him and moved when I picked him up. I lift the blankets, feel under him, check all around where he was. Nothing. Meanwhile, that creaking is still going on. Right at my door. No brakes. Just that 2-second rhythm. At this point, I'm sweating. I'm scared and mad and just done. I scream Leo's name. Right as I do, I hear another noise. The creaking stops, and I see Leo's face appear in the crack of the door. I just lose it. I yell at him. "What the hell are you doing? Why are you standing in front of the door like that and not answering me?" He looks completely confused. He goes, "What? I just came out of the bathroom. I heard you." Now, our bathroom is to the left of the bedroom. It's tiled, no wood floor in there. So those creaking sounds? That wasn't him standing on the wood outside my door, shifting around. I ask him, "You weren't just standing right here like a creep? You weren't pacing or something?" And he's like, "No, I swear. I was in the kitchen and then went to the bathroom. You must have been dreaming." Here's the thing. If he'd been in the kitchen, I would have heard him. The kitchen floor and the hallway both creak. There's no way he could have been stomping around out there for almost 10 minutes without me hearing him walking to and from the bathroom too. And I wasn't lying down. I was sitting up, actively searching for my phone. I was awake. Leo knows I'm sensitive to this kind of thing. I've had stuff happen all my life. I could probably fill a whole book with ghost stories, and normally he's pretty good about validating me. This time, though, he kind of half shrugged it off, saying maybe I was in some half-sleep state or something. And I get why he'd say that. Honestly, it's one of the explanations I'm considering too. We've lived in this place since September, and nothing weird has happened until this month. The only other tiny thing was once I thought I saw a little figure in the kitchen about the height of my son in my peripheral vision. I joked that Milo was astral projecting while he napped. I used to do a lot of astral travel when I was younger, so it's kind of a running joke between me and myself. The last few nights, though, I haven't been out on the patio with Leo like usual, listening to creepy Reddit stories and laughing. My health has been rough. I have lupus and PSA, and lately my treatments have not been going great. Today was actually the first day I took a new biologic, and it's made me feel pretty sick. I even broke out in a couple of hives. So I'm extra tired, falling asleep during shows I want to stay awake for after Milo goes to bed. So I checked the floor. I tried reproducing the creaks with my own weight. I retraced where my phone could have gone. I went over everything with that logical, nerdy part of my brain. And here's where it gets even weirder. After all this, after Leo and I talk and things calm down, I finally spot my phone. It's on my desk, right next to my head, within arm's reach. Like, if it had been there the whole time, I would have seen it. I swear to you, I would have. It was literally right there, screen down, as if it had just appeared again where it should have been from the start. So now my brain is trying to make sense of it all. The weird matted hair thing I saw a couple of days before. The creaking. The missing but not missing phone. Leo being in a totally different place than where the sounds were coming from. My son asleep through everything. My own exhaustion. The new meds. The most honest way I can put it is this. It felt, for a moment, like me and Milo were in a slightly different version of reality. Just a hair to the left of everyone else in the apartment. Like we were in the same place, but not synced up. And whatever was standing at my door, whatever was crossing that hallway with all that heavy, matted hair, belonged more to that other place. I even asked my friend Nolan, he's kind of my go-to spiritual/nerdy hybrid friend, if he'd ever heard of people feeling like they're trapped in some other layer of their own home while everyone else is just living normally around them. He said he has heard stories like that, about people being out of phase or whatever you want to call it. Maybe I was just in a weird sleep state. Maybe the medication and the fatigue made me hallucinate. Those are real possibilities, and I take them seriously. But both experiences, back to back like that, it's a lot to write off as coincidence. Right now, I'm surprisingly calm. There's a part of me that wants to freak out, but the bigger part of me is just watching, observing, taking mental notes like, okay, if this happens again, what time is it? What's the light like? Who's awake? Where's the phone really? I love this home. Up until this month, I've never felt anything bad here. And even now, I don't feel like whatever this is wants to hurt us. I'm cautious, but I'm not living in constant fear. So that's where I'm at. Half scientist, half ghost magnet, very tired mom. Keeping a close eye on creaky floors and door cracks, and making sure my phone is exactly where I think it is before I go to sleep.